You know that feeling, right? When you hear a speech that just grabs you. It doesn't just give you information, it genuinely moves you, maybe even changes how you see things. Well, there's a real power in that kind of communication. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the ancient discipline that studies exactly how that happens in a spiritual context.
I mean, just listen to this quote from St. John Chrysostom, who was one of the most celebrated preachers in history. This gets right to the heart of what we're talking about. The goal here isn't just giving a good talk. The ambition is, well, it's cosmic. It's about using words to connect the earthly with the divine. So how on earth do you even begin to approach a task that huge? Well, it's not just about getting a flash of inspiration or having some raw talent. Turns out there's a formal, structured field of study behind it all. And that discipline actually has a name, which brings us, of course, to our first big question. The term we're looking for is homiletics. It comes from the Greek word homilia, which means conversation. And that's really the perfect way to think about it, isn't it? It's not a lecture, it's a conversation. Homiletics covers the whole thing, from the intense preparation of the message to the art of actually delivering it, and even the spiritual life of the speaker themselves. What I find really fascinating is how homiletics is seen as this duality. On one side, it's a science, it has rules, methods, a whole body of knowledge you have to master. But on the other side, it's an art. It needs skill, wisdom, and a delivery that can actually touch people's hearts. And here we have a great picture of what that fusion looks like in a real person. The Bible talks about a preacher named Apollos. He was eloquent and bold. That's the art, right? But he was also mighty in the scriptures, which shows that deep, systematic knowledge. That's the science. He put it all together, a passionate spirit with accurate teaching, and became this incredibly effective speaker. Okay, so let's see how this all builds, because this art and science combo wasn't just invented yesterday. Oh no, it has incredibly deep historical roots that have been shaping it for thousands of years. This timeline just gives us a little peek. You see these huge events like the Council of Nicaea way back in 325 AD. That's when the core doctrines that preachers would need to explain were really solidified. And that leads right into what's known as the golden age of patristic eloquence, with giants like St. John Chrysostom who refined preaching into this high art form, but always built on a rock-solid theological foundation. So all that history leads to a very distinct style and a very specific purpose. What is it that makes an Orthodox sermon, well, an Orthodox sermon? What are its defining features? To really get Orthodox sermons, you have to understand their ultimate goal. This famous line from St. Athanasius points to this concept called theosis, or deification. The idea here is that preaching isn't just about sharing facts. It's about guiding the listener on this transformative path toward union with God. It's really the whole point of the faith in this tradition, not just following rules, but being fundamentally changed. So this diagram here gives us a fantastic visual for the key elements that all work together to achieve that huge goal. Let's zoom in on a few of them. So what are these key ingredients? Well, first, the message is always Trinitarian. It's centered on God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. It's also sacramental, which means it's not just talk. It's meant to lead people to actually experience God in the life of the church. It's also ecclesiastical, interpreted through the collective wisdom of the church, and apologetic, which is a fancy way of saying it defends and clarifies the faith. Now here's a really fascinating piece of this tradition, something called apophatic theology. It's an approach that's rooted in this profound sense of humility. It basically says, look, God is a mystery that's way beyond our full understanding. So instead of trying to pin God down with our limited human words, it often talks about God by saying what he is not. It's a way of pointing at something infinite without trying to put it in a tiny box. So we've talked a lot about the message, but in homiletics, you absolutely cannot separate the message from the messenger. The character and the spiritual life of the preacher aren't just a nice bonus. They are the foundation of everything.
When you look at these steps, you see this is about a deep, personal transformation. It all starts with a life of prayer and humility. Then you've got the hard work of gaining knowledge. That's the science part. And it's all held together by this genuine commitment and love for the listeners. The person doesn't just deliver the message, they have to strive to actually live it.
Okay, let's bring it all back home. We've got this powerful combination of deep, structured knowledge, the science, and the personal, spiritual sincerity of the speaker, the art. So what happens when those two things really come together? Let me tell you a quick story to show you the power of this in action. When a church father named Gregory of Nyssa was made a bishop, his entire diocese had only 13 Christian families. That's it, just 13. And get this shows the incredible transformative potential we've been talking about. By the end of his life, the entire situation had completely flipped on its head. Through powerful, heartfelt preaching that blended that deep theological knowledge with genuine spiritual artistry, his work led to an almost total spiritual transformation of his entire community. Because at the end of the day, homiletics isn't some abstract theological exercise or a dusty-old historical topic. It's a living, breathing practice of communication. It's all about building a bridge that can connect timeless truths to the very real questions, the struggles, and the hopes that people have right here, right now. And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. I mean, we are just bombarded with information all day long. Content, noise, you name it. So what is it? What's that secret ingredient that takes a message from being just another piece of data and turns it into something with the power to truly connect, to persuade, and maybe, just maybe, to change a life?